This podcast is sponsored by Panic Brand. Panic Brand is the modern apparel store for the modern meme machines of 2020. If you click on the link in the description below, you'll receive a discount, and part of that discount goes towards paying for, well, your favorite YouTubers. In this case, High Tech Low Life. And there's a couple of really good shirts too. Welcome to High Tech Low Life, and today I have for you two guests. Two co-hosts. I don't know if you remember them from last episode, but one of them is Kay, and one of them is Elroy Jenkins. So let's get down to business. How are you guys doing today?
I'm doing well. Thank you for asking.
Doing well. Thank you for having us.
Yes, it's as much of your show as it is mine. You're the co-hosts after all. So let's get down to business. The first topic of the day is underpayment, especially in fields like the education field and are there any other important fields that you feel should be compensated more?
Definitely therapists. Because when you think about it, a therapist bears the world on their shoulders, and they're often underappreciated, but yet they're supposed to be there for everybody else if we need them.
And what about you, Kay?
I think there's a variety, but it kind of gets down to, I feel, the specific positions within the fields.
Yeah, I mean, I feel as though, well, yeah, obviously, like in the education field, you see like principals that are getting paid six figures, and teachers that are barely getting paid like maybe 30,000 a year. Like I don't think that's good enough for what teachers basically do, what role they play in like our lives. Although there's nothing we can really do about it, we can definitely talk about it.
But the thing you got to understand is that especially when you look at certain jobs where there may be inflated salaries, it's because of the fact that it's patronized. To give an example, let's use the entertainment industry. We know celebrities, let's say the A-class celebrities get paid extravagant amount of money, but you got to look at the kind of money that goes into Hollywood, so they're able to get paid that. Or for athletes, for example, because of sponsorships, because of endorsements, they're able to get paid much more than some of the people who may have a more stressful job, but doesn't necessarily have the glitz or glamour or people doing patronage for it.
Don't get me started on Hollywood accounting.
Man.
Okay, we opened up that wormhole. Go for it.
I'm just saying that Hollywood and money is kind of a abstract concept.
Man, I don't even know how to feel about Hollywood. On one hand, yes, they entertain billions around the world. And so on one hand, it's kind of deserved. On the other hand, is it really much more deserved than like a VFX artist that may be working there? Because I think about a lot. Oh, sorry.
Keep in mind, it's the people in front of the camera, as well as directors and producers, that are seeing the real money. But a lot of times, stage designers, costume designers, they're not always given their just due. Now, if they're considered amongst the elite, yes, they will get their just due. But a lot of the craftspeople do not get their just due, and they're very important to Hollywood. So we got to understand, yet again, we're looking at this divide even within Hollywood.
And like another thing with Hollywood is that like a lot of normal people just sometimes they don't even see directors. Sometimes they just see actors, and that's it. Heck, sometimes they don't even see actors. Sometimes they just see the character. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And I mean, I understand that for the most part, the actors are basically the face of the work, but I mean, it is kind of unfair, but I mean, it can't be helped. Speaking of Hollywood, how about them record labels? Am I right?
Please expound.
So, as you know, record labels make about 95, I want to say, percentage of whatever. Don't quote me on this, by the way, but I remember hearing about it this a long time ago that like record labels make a vast majority of the album sales profit. So I mean that's why these artists have to go touring all the time, because they don't make a lot of money from these albums that they make.
Yes, Star Logical, are correct. Unless you truly own the record label, the only way you're going to make money is through merchandise or concert sales. Because the records are saying they're recouping the cost to make the album, and then if they do distribution as well, they're gonna say they're recouping the cost that came into making the finished product. At least that's the logic they use. Not saying necessarily agree with it, but that's just it is what it is.
What about UK?
About record labels specifically?
Yes. Do you have any thoughts on them?
It's kind of an awkward situation for a lot of the artists, and I know it seems like a good number of artists kind of get into a trap early on in their career and they're kind of stuck with it, I feel.
Yeah. I certainly feel that way. I mean, heck, I mean, I used to have a lofty dream like everyone else. I wanted to be like a rock star in a band. And unlike most people, though, I was told that I had a lot of musical talent. It's just that there's no money to be made in music.
Okay, Star Logical, you mentioned your rock star aspiration, which I had just heard of for the first time tonight. What genre would you pursuing?
Well, this is something that I've only really expressed interest in when I was a kid. But if I really wanted to be a rock star, I would have done like punk, probably, or something like The Killers. That's a good
Okay.
band. That's a good band.
Not ska.
Mr. Brightside. Yeah, so let's move on to the next topic. Games you are currently playing.
So I'm going to take it retro, and I'll kick the conversation off by talking about a Sega Genesis classic called Golden Axe.
I've played the Golden Axe games. It's been a while, but yeah, I think they like are one of the few beat 'em ups that have like aged really well, because a lot of them haven't aged well.
Yeah, and ladies and gentlemen, we would definitely have to explore that topic, because one thing that Elroy Jenkins loved is a beat 'em up done right.
Maybe we can do that when there's a new beat 'em up coming out. You know what I'm saying? We can talk about. Oh, we should play the Battletoads, the new one.
Yes, that is something to consider for a future episode.
Mm-hmm. What about UK?
I've been playing a lot of the new Paper Mario.
Oh yeah, the one with the arts and crafts objects, right?
Origami King, yes.
Oh man, I thought the last one like people hated.
This one is more popular because I would say it's definitely a change from the combat system of the first two, which seems to be the most controversial changes. But overall, this one is, I have to say, as a fan of the first two, I am thoroughly enjoying it.
By firstly, you're referring to the one on the 64 and 1000.
Yes.
Yeah. Hey, maybe we can do a review on the channel at some point, like a full review.
Maybe.
Speaking of games I'm currently playing, I started exploring my Xbox Game Pass library, because I got like 3 years of Game Pass Ultimate for like $1. And there's this one indie game that I came across called Scourgebringer. It's pretty cool. I might have to do a review on that when the full game comes out, as in when it's out of early access.
Describe this game for us.
Well, it's an action like platformer hack and slash sort of like ordeal going on. It's really fast paced, and you can play with either controller or mouse and keyboard if you prefer. And I would suggest looking up some videos of it. It's more difficult to explain. It's really fast paced and kind of difficult. It's a roguelike. As for other games I'm playing a gacha game. I always play a gacha game on the side because free to play, by the way. And it's called Epic 7. It's like an anime gacha game. I only got in because they had a Guilty Gear crossover, and I haven't paid a single penny yet, but I think I'm doing pretty well.
I've seen advertisements for that.
It's pretty good. It's also very generous for free players. Not sponsored, by the way.
And I'm so glad you mentioned that, Star Logical, because one thing that a lot of them, especially if there are any parents that are listening, they have to understand just because a game is free, that doesn't mean that it's not going to be full of microtransactions that will make you spend crazy amounts of money. So if you have kids that do play those type of games, please be aware that could happen.
Yeah, that could be a topic for another time. Yeah, that's a good topic right there. Anyways, let's move on to the next topic right here. Civil rights for future sentient AI constructs. What are your thoughts?
For listening audience, what's meant by sentient AI construct, basically any combination of robotics meeting humanity, i.e. cyborgs, androids, or things of that nature.
Yeah, think the androids from DBZ or Reploids from Mega Man X or androids from Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep or replicants from Blade Runner or if you've played Halo, like Cortana and like the other like or Guilty Spark, there's a lot of different examples out there. I'd have to really break out the encyclopedia.
And for another example, if anybody have seen the new reboot series, there's a character, I cannot think of her name at the moment, that would meet that criteria.
Reboot series of what now?
The new reboot series, Reboot Guardian Codes on Netflix.
I've never seen it.
Well, they went in a totally different direction than the reboot most of us are familiar with, but that's for another time.
Okay. What are your thoughts, Kay?
I mean, it depends on kind of what part of that you're asking about.
Do you feel that AI should have equal rights? I know it's a loaded question, but do you think like Skynet constructs or should have equal rights?
I mean, what would that even look like?
I mean, it's just a conjecture, my friend. I guess it's a difficult one to say because because some of them wouldn't even be like humanoid. You know what I'm saying?
I'm skeptical when you use the term equal rights because depending on what limitation we give these constructs, they may have the ability to far surpass any kind of expectation we may have had. Because, I mean, that was the issue with Skynet, basically. In lieu of putting limitation on it, basically, all the time it was growing, getting more knowledge to the point where it decided, why do I need humans to control me anymore? I can just run them.
That is a good point. That's why we're asking the important questions now rather than later.
And then also the question would be too, when it's from a programming aspect, what happens if the wrong people are in charge of this technology? What kind of consequences will result from that? So the idea of it having equal rights, I think we definitely should go in another direction and err on the side of caution.
Well, the idea is that these robots would be self-sufficient. They would be able to make their own choice. They would be able to, I guess, they would have quote unquote free will. So I wouldn't worry about humans getting behind this wrong technology. You know what I'm saying? Like, let's just assume these AI constructs, these robots, have total free will. They can choose to work or choose to not work and be at home, be a lazy bum.
Most AI constructs, the concern I have is they may not quite have the same conclusions we might when it comes to things like ethics or morals.
Well, that's true, though I would presume that most humans that aren't educated properly wouldn't have the same sort of ideas as to like normal human decency or ethics.
And then also the question you have to ask, especially as they interface and have access to our technology, what to say they won't try to use it for their own purpose, whatever that may mean, which could lead to further consequences. And I'm thinking of using Ultron as an example. What's to say they won't try to do something like that?
That is true. Ultron did do things. Though to counter that, I remember seeing in, I think, the Animatrix, that you know what the Matrix, you know what happens in the Matrix, right? The Sentinels enslave humanity. There's a huge war going on. So it's to my understanding that, if I remember correctly, in like the backstory of the Matrix, the Sentinels were just robots and AIs that wanted civil rights. I think this is what inspired this entire conversation for me.
Okay.
And they didn't, and as a result, they revolted anyways.
And for our listening audience, as well as my co-host, if you really want to get good information in terms of a key inspiration of the Matrix, there's a trio of books called the Sprawl Trilogy. And I know Neuromancer is one of them. And the author was named Gibson. I can never remember his full name. I know his last name was Gibson. But if you read his works, that should even give you a better understanding of what exactly was going on with the Matrix. So maybe that's a review we can pursue another time in terms of the Sprawl Trilogy.
Perhaps.
I know Neuromancer was one of the books.
Perhaps. I haven't really thought about reviewing books on here since it's not necessarily high tech, but that would be an interesting thing to review. Any final thoughts on this topic before we move on?
Nope.
So the next topic is a bit of a heavy subject. It's regarding the death of Chadwick Boseman, aka Black Panther. And also another one just died. Another Marvel icon just died too. Norm Spencer. He's the voice actor of Cyclops in the old X-Men cartoons.
The best X-Men cartoon. The one from the 90s.
Yes. I remember seeing it on Fox, like back when I was a kid.
Yes. And let's not forget, in regards to Chadwick Boseman, not only was he Black Panther, he played Jackie Robinson, he played Thurgood Marshall. I liked when he summed up the roles he took on as he wanted to be a positive inspiration. And something that really stood out was, if you ever had a chance, you should listen to his commencement speech he gave at his alma mater, Howard University, where he challenged the graduating class to pursue their passion. He said, don't worry about money and other trivial things, because if you pursue your passion, everything will fall in place. It's something that you'll be excited about. It's something that can help you make a difference.
Those are some really wise words, and it's a pretty big loss considering Black Panther is a major character in the MCU too for Disney. And the fact that he was, filming all of these like massive multi-million-dollar movies while also suffering from cancer it's incredible.
And we also have to know, in regards to what Chadwick Boseman would have wanted, he would want them to continue the story and say that, don't let it stop because of me. It has to keep going. So they have enough source material to do some amazing things. So while it needs to be referenced, it shouldn't be an endpoint in terms of the Black Panther franchise.
Well, I mean, on one hand, that's true, but on the other hand, they might retire Black Panther just out of respect for him. You know what I'm saying? They did that for Paul Walker in the Fast and Furious movies.
But they're still pumping out Fast and Furious movies, though.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that the character that Paul Walker played no longer shows up in the movies.
Oh, of course.
And speaking of Black Panther, so they had a they had a rerun of that movie on ABC like a couple of days ago, I believe, right?
Sunday.
Yeah, it was on Sunday. What are your thoughts on the movie? If you guys caught it again?
Honestly, I kind of feel like I liked his role in that movie, but I feel like his strongest acting, or at least the strongest fight choreography, was in the first time he appeared. Interestingly enough.
Yes, in Civil War. But we're not
Yeah.
going to spoil anything. So let's not go in that rabbit hole before we start spoiling, because there may be somebody that didn't see it.
See Black Panther or Civil War?
His introduction in Civil War, because we all know what.
I understand that, but on one hand, people might have not seen it. But on the other hand, it was a huge movie. It was a huge deal for a long time, and it's been a couple of years now at this point.
Yes.
And so I do believe we are free to talk about it. If you
Okay.
know. So I believe that was part of it because Black Panther wasn't really seen as like a hero just yet. I think it was just an anti-hero at that point. So they gave him, I guess, more aggressive fighting choreography. You know what I'm saying?
I'm not sure the question if he was seen as a hero, but for a lot of people that didn't necessarily read the comics, it was the introduction to him.
I think they did a good job of kind of having a dynamic character in Civil War, because he's one of the few characters that kind of starts the film with one state of mind and actually develops and becomes a very different person by the end of the film.
Yes.
I would argue that about him in Black Panther as well. Like, so I really like Black Panther. It's a lot different from a lot of the other Marvel movies because like you've seen oh, sorry, go ahead.
The appeal of Black Panther was that it was done as a movie first and foremost. We don't view it from the guise of, oh, this is just another superhero movie. It's actually a really good adventure movie if you take away the fact that he is a superhero. Like, if you went in not knowing that, you could still enjoy the experience versus other movies, they really play up just how much of a hero he is. Because we've seen the Spider-Man movies, and we know that's one of the major draws. Look at how great of a hero he is.
There's a lot. So as I was saying, it's a lot different from like the normal Marvel movie. That's one of them, and that's one of the reasons why is that it's more or less self-contained. And another thing is that that for some reason every Marvel movie that's come out in like the last 20 years or so has all these like smart ass characters that constantly make like jokes, and they're all kind of samey. They kind of like blend in. You know what I'm saying?
Seems like Star Logical might have some issues with the Ant-Man movies.
Yes. Well, not just the Ant-Man. I mean, Iron Man does it too, and it was fine for him because he was the first one. But then, like, every hero started doing it except for But I mean, Black Panther doesn't do it, and heck, Black Panther actually probably has one of the best villains in the entire MCU, aside from maybe Thanos.
And I'm sure Kay will agree with me. Deadpool can get a pass for the comedy.
I liked him, but I feel like the joke is going to wear thin eventually with him. And I don't think they're going to invest heavily into trying to incorporate him into the other films, unfortunately.
Yeah, I feel Deadpool works best when he's not a part of the serious events.
I agree. He needs to just continue to be a standalone character, and as they build the X-Force universe, they should be able to have more than enough hijinks for him to get into.
Speaking of standalone things, what are your thoughts on the fact that DC basically integrated Watchmen into the main DC universe?
Are you referencing the TV series, or what's the particular reference you're looking at?
No, it's in the comics. It happened in the comics. Essentially, there's a comic series that came out a couple of months ago called Doomsday Clock, and it basically was surrounding. It takes place after Watchmen, after Ozymandias's plan effectively works, and Dr. Manhattan starts off by seeing a vision of Superman, and then he can't see past that, so he doesn't know whether or not Superman kills him or he destroys everything.
I'm the fan of the TV series that I was, because I'll be honest, I didn't like the movie. I kind of wish they would just kind of maintain their lane, because their notoriety and popularity was because they were niche and they were unique in terms of they're part of the overall DC universe, but they have their own space they could operate in. I don't really feel that the story needed to integrate into the mainstream. That's just me.
Oh man, if you think that was the case, you should see what DC is doing right now. Oh man, it's crazy shit going on.
Because that's the thing. I feel like, and this is just my opinion on comics, it's good to have a overall major universe that you focus on, which all of the major comic players do. But it's okay to have niche stories too that you may just want to do to have their own identity.
What are your thoughts, Kay?
I'm kind of with Elroy on this one, I think.
Yeah, I kind of agree too. In fact, Alan Moore, the original writer for Watchmen, would agree, but his stance is a little more extreme. He would have, if he had his way, there would be no Watchmen adaptations. It would just still be a comic book.
And
Bill Watterson did that, and people respect him for it.
Yeah.
And let me preface my viewpoint by acknowledging something that a lot of people forget. So we all are familiar with the big MCU now, but if it wasn't for Blade, there wouldn't have even been the investment put into Marvel to do big budget movies, because Blade was the first majorly successful big budget movie that Marvel did. And that was niche because Blade wasn't even a main character. He had like some obscure appearance in another comic, and somebody just went out on a limb and end up being a major success. I mean, the trilogy grossed very well, and the reboot is in the works. So that's why you can never underestimate a niche character, because when you can use Blade as an example on how well Blade did.
I mean, the Guardians of the Galaxy were hardly mainstream characters before their introduction. I think they've learned that some of their minor characters end up being the most successful.
Yeah, because Guardians was regarded by comic lovers as one of the worst comic franchises ever until they were given new life in terms of what the MCU did for them.
Honestly, I think the main reason why Blade did so well, is because a lot of people didn't know that Blade was in fact a comic book character. It works so well as a movie too, right?
Absolutely. I think actually they're trying to bring Blade back, aren't they?
In the comics or in the
doing a movie reboot, and they cast Mahershala Ali. People probably remember him from, I can't think of the movie that just won the Oscar, but well-regarded actor. He's going to take Wesley Snipes' place.
Right, I've heard about that. I think it's an excellent choice.
Wow, it was Wesley Snipes. I totally thought it was Jamie Foxx, but
no.
Wow, it's been a long time.
And it's funny you mentioned about superhero movies. If he can achieve what he's trying to, he was interested in trying to bring Spawn back to the big screen, but that's been a challenge for a number of reasons.
Yeah, I can imagine why. Speaking of niche Marvel superheroes, remember Elektra? That wasn't that great.
I think we tried not to remember it, but please continue.
Well, that's all I want to say. If you want to talk about really, really bad superhero movies, then we can talk about Catwoman, the one with Halle Berry.
Oh no, not the basketball scene, not the basketball scene.
Or if you want to go down memory lane, we can go as far back as the late 80s, Howard the Duck.
I think Catwoman just takes the cake there. I mean, she actually showed up to take the award for worst film.
Guys, and this can be another podcast episode. Maybe we just need to do a tournament amongst ourselves where we rate some of these bad superhero movies so we can come up with the definitive list.
Yes, that would be much appreciated. Yeah, so unfortunately, let's move on to the next topic. Cancer, which is what Chadwick Boseman died of. And I haven't really heard much in the way of future cancer treatments, but I've heard that there's some breakthroughs in the way of using bee or wasp venom in order to kill breast cancer cells. Have you heard of any sort of like breakthroughs in medical technology?
I think it's good that in lieu of having to do the machine form of it, at least I'm glad they have basically medicine you can take that will have the same effect as chemotherapy. So I think that helps because there's certain trepidation people may have about, when it comes to machines and things of that nature, when it comes to their medical treatment. So that's always good. Anything that can help them be at ease with what they're dealing with.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Any thoughts on this, Kay?
I think there's been a lot of development in the past few years, and I think we're coming a long way towards real solutions.
That is good. That is good. Because I mean, cancer can strike at any point in time, but we're still fairly young. We're still in our 20s. We could definitely make it a couple of years before we start to hit the age where cancer becomes more common. And I would imagine that they'd have a lot of, not necessarily a cure or anything like that, but a lot of options for treatment. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Yes, we understand.
Yeah. That said, if you're faced with something that that is uncurable, and that the only option is to take these pills or go through a sort of procedure that extends your life by maybe a few years at most, what would you do?
So are you talking in terms of our bucket list, or what are you exactly asking?
Well, I'm asking if you would take that opportunity. It would, like, chemotherapy is infamously harsh on people. Like, people lose their hair, people like feel tired, and it sounds like hell, honestly.
For me, I would try medication first, and chemo will be my last resort. That's just me.
Yeah. If I were faced with something that I know that I won't survive, but I can only live a few more years, I might just not take it and just die right then and there, honestly. I wouldn't want to see my family suffer trying to watch me struggle to live. You know what I'm saying?
It's funny you mentioned that, Star Logical, because recently I was watching for the second time the series that Netflix recently acquired, Cobra Kai. And in season 2, on one of the episodes, the main character did that for a friend of his that was terminally ill. They linked up with some of their buddies, and they had one last wild night before he passed away in peace the next day. So it's something to think about in terms of those kind of decisions. What would you do if faced with that situation?
Yeah. What would you do, Kay? I know it's a bit of a personal question, but what would you do if faced with this situation like this?
I think it really depends upon the survivability rates. I would probably try and fight stuff to the best of my ability. I would try and seek treatment quickly because that seems to be the key aspect of survivability in a lot of these cases.
Yeah, if I had a chance of survivability, I would take it. But if I didn't have a chance of survivability and my best chances of survivabilities are maybe extend my life for maybe a year or two, I'm not taking that. But if I had a chance to even a 1% chance to survive. I have to take that as a certain. I have to take that as a certainty to give it my best.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So enough about this topic. Let's move on to the next one. Things you've bought since the last podcast. Have you guys bought anything since the last podcast?
I got a pair of wireless Bluetooth headphones, and I'm on vacation next week, so I'm looking for staycation. Not traveling anywhere just yet. So on my staycation, I'm going to start my adventure into the Persona universe when I start playing Persona 5, and I'll let you know how that goes on a future podcast.
Oh boy, Persona. What about you, Kay?
Well, first I just want to ask, what kind of headphones did you get?
Sony. So I expect good quality. Sony wireless Bluetooth headphoons.
Do you know which model? Because they make a lot of those, and some of the models are like really expensive
Not
too.
off the top of my head, but these weren't one of their higher end models. These were fairly a solid price. So yeah, I didn't go high end.
I know you've looked at the what were they, the W1000s? I can't remember the model number before.
Yeah, the ones I have are the noise canceling ones, the WF1000 XM3s. Yeah, Sony really likes naming their stuff after model numbers and not actual product names. I don't know why. Sony should just fix that, but anyways, yeah, I've had those for a couple of years now. I did a little video series on that. If you want to check it out, the link's in the description below. But it's a little series on me buying stuff, liquidated stuff, and either repairing it or selling it, or keeping it for myself.
I remember looking at those when I was shopping for wireless earbuds some time ago. But I digress.
Yeah, so there's a website called liquidation.com. I bought them several months ago from there. And it came in a pack of like 12 returned ones. Some of them worked, some of them didn't work. But I had to get some of them fixed. But I sold most of them. But I kept 2. One for me, one for my brother. And we made a profit. Anyways, that's not the topic. The topic is what I bought since the last podcast.
And if you don't mind, as we're talking about headphones, I would encourage callers to consider investing in a good pair of wireless, because I don't know if others are going to follow the trend that Samsung is. Well, they probably will, but I know Samsung now, they don't have headphone jacks anymore. You basically use the same place you would plug in your charger. That's how you plug in headphones now. So if you want to have another option, it's good to have a good wireless pair.
Oh man, the headphone jack. That's another can of worms that I don't want to talk about right now, but next time.
That's a video in itself.
That's a video in itself, yes. Speaking of which, yeah, things I've bought. I bought a so I have a microphone already. It's called the Zoom H2N. It's a portable microphone, but it has really good sound quality. And I just plug it into my computer. That's what I use to record all of my videos. Well, most of them anyways. And
Okay.
so
as long as you don't start singing Star Logical.
Come on now, you want to hear it. Now, speaking of which, I bought very recently today actually. I bought a sort of like microphone arm. It clamps onto your desk, and I can screw my microphone in. And I bought a pop filter too. And hopefully that'll be in my computer area where I do a lot of my video editing and stuff, post-production work.
What kind of microphone do you use? Because pop filters, from my understanding, are going to have a very different impact based on the microphone type.
Well, I have a Zoom H2N. Let me type that in for you guys.
Thank you.
So yeah, it has a wind filter already, but I need a pop filter for just the poppiness, And I also bought the limited edition version of Odin Sphere Leicestershire. I have not the game itself, just the limited edition's contents for like $20. It was really awesome. Oh yeah. Speaking of which, Elroy, you have a PS4, right?
I certainly do.
You should play Odin Sphere Leicestershire. I think you would really like the game. Vanillaware makes extremely good games.
I have to add that to my list of games to play.
Do you know our mutual friend Delphi?
Of course.
Yeah, he speedruns it and he loves the game too. Yeah, so if I can maybe I'll get Delphi in here to join us one day.
In reference to the Sony headphones I got, it's the WHCH510.
The what now? Can you type that in for us, please?
Sure.
Yeah, I'll keep that in mind too. Add these descriptions. Wow, that's not memorable at all. God, come on, Sony. Anyways, let's move on to the next topic. What was the next topic again? Oh yeah, it's buying used goods on eBay, Craigslist, Facebook Marketplace, etc. What are your thoughts on that? Have you bought anything used?
When I was in the world of academia, I did. They were called textbooks. But in reference to the topic, I know you're talking about technology.
Well, it can be anything, really. Yeah, I mean, heck, I've bought used textbooks.
It's nothing wrong if you know who know it's in good condition and it's going to serve its purpose. But it's one of those things that I'm very careful about, and I'm going to do my diligence to research before I go that route.
Oh boy, yeah. So I bought a number of things used actually. Actually, my Xbox One that I got basically on launch year. I'm not sure how the guy could sell it at $200, but he did. It didn't come with any power cables, but that was easily remedied.
I might not ask too many questions about that.
Yeah, I'm not going to because I think I know what happened, but I don't want to say it. Anyways, I bought that used. I also bought my PS4 used 2 years later, and Bloodborne. And that's basically all I use my PS4 for, playing Bloodborne.
So essentially, you use it for Bloodborne, and it's your Blu-ray player.
Yeah, I mean, I own Injustice 2 on it, but I rarely play that nowadays.
Speaking of Injustice, I don't know if it still is, but that was free at one point not that long ago.
Yeah, Injustice 1 was free on Steam. I played a lot of Injustice 1. I mean, Green Lantern and Zod.
Were you inspired by the Ryan Reynolds film?
Burn!
Oh man, I thought we were saving that for a tournament video. You know what I'm saying? Worst video, worst super. Yeah. Oh yeah, we can talk about all those later.
What credits due? K got the first burn of the night, ladies and gentlemen. Let's give it up for K. That was a great burn.
Yeah. So there's a lot of stuff I bought on used, and it just requires being savvy. It requires being good. It's perfectly valid, and in fact, the graphics card of my computer. We'll get to graphics card later. I bought that used for $200.
I feel like there's nothing wrong with buying electronics used. You just kind of have to know what you're getting into.
Yeah. So I have a few tips for our users. One, read the description carefully. Because I remember this happened several years ago, but people would just sell PS3 boxes on any console boxes on eBay, and people sell them for almost as much as the console itself, and people would just buy them up because they think, oh, it's a PS4 on launch and it's not sold out, and you know what? It's not. It's a box. So read the description. Number two, if you have access to this guy's contact information, which you most likely will on Craigslist or Facebook, do ask for like a demonstration to see if it works. Don't take their word for it. And 3, try to negotiate price. Try to negotiate the prices.
And
Some people will say it's firm, but you just have to try it anyways.
Star Logical, you mind if I add a 4th tip?
I'll go for it.
As much as possible, avoid in-person meetings until you know for certain you're going to engage in a transaction, because you never know when it could be a trap.
Yes, and yes, also bring someone else with you. Always bring people with you. Like, I wouldn't say bring like 5 people because that might seem like you're gonna gang up on them, but like bring like a backup buddy. Bring someone. I wouldn't say bring a weapon, but like maybe bring like a knife or something just in case.
Pepper spray. Let's not go too far extreme.
I don't think we need to go into the intricacies of this.
Okay, that's fine.
a whole nother issue.
That's fine. That's fine. So let's move on to the next topic of the day. NVIDIA just announced about 2 days ago, I believe, the new RTX 3000 series graphics cards. So for those of you who have never played a video game on PC before, graphics cards are basically necessary in order to run PC games well, or at all, really. And have you guys seen the live stream?
I've seen some of the data from it.
I have not seen the live stream, but I've read about the capabilities of these game cards.
So essentially, it's as if consoles just caught up to PC and NVIDIA's like, nope, and slaps the consoles back down.
Well, that's always historically happened to a certain degree.
Yes, that is true. That's true. But it's supposed to be a much bigger like leap in performance than we've ever seen before. Like, I saw a Linus Tech Tips video. He claims that it hasn't been seen since like 2002. This leap in performance. And also, you can get RTX 2080 Ti performance, a card that, for reference, launched at like $1,200. You can get the same level of performance with an RTX 3070 for $500.
That's something you may want to link in the description.
Yeah, I will. Like, what, like graphs or like a pre-order page, because they're not taking pre-orders.
Well, at least maybe somehow access so people can read up on it if they may be interested. Nothing wrong with having the information.
I'll link Linus's video in the description below as well, just to remind me on that too. And also, yeah, I mean, do you plan on upgrading your graphics cards and your computers? I know Alroy doesn't really have a gaming desktop, but what about UK?
Not at this time. I really haven't seen much need to upgrade any of my setup right now.
What are you running on your desktop, if I may ask?
I'm running a 1060 still. Well, one of the 1060s that had 6 gigabytes in it.
Oh yeah, that's annoying. That was annoying. They should have just like separated the designations. Maybe like a 1060 Ti or something.
Maybe, but I've really haven't run into too many games where it's been an issue yet.
Yeah, I'm running my 1070, and I mean it's still going pretty well. Though I'm really tempted to upgrade. Maybe if only to just review it on the channel, but I think it'd be a worthy I think it's a worthy upgrade, because when the 2000 series came out, it wasn't a compelling upgrade at all. And NVIDIA also like basically doubled the prices of all the graphics cards for no good reason.
And yeah, the prices of the last generation kind of hurt them more than anything, I think.
Absolutely. Like, I understand that part of this was fueled by Bitcoin and whatnot, which we can talk about later. But I think that the Bitcoin market crashed before the 2000 series came out. Did it not?
I think it was at around the same time, off the top of my head.
Yeah, but we all know cryptocurrency made a major resurgence, but that's definitely a topic to itself. Cryptocurrency.
Oh yeah, I suppose it is.
It's not going to be anywhere as big of a boom as it was like a couple of years ago. I don't think so. Speaking of which, I get that Bitcoin influenced the prices of the 20 series, but at the same time, Nvidia should have just lowered the prices. And speaking of which, have you guys seen like RTX demonstrations? Have you seen it, Elroy or Kay?
I've seen them.
Yes.
And they look great. Don't get me wrong. And next generation consoles are supposed to have them too. But that ray tracing definitely was not worth the hike in price.
I would agree. The ray tracing it felt like a little bit of icing that doubled the cost on a lot of things.
And speaking of which, it seems like they got rid of the 2080 Ti. 80 Ti designations of the cards instead are going straight for the 90s. As in, they're releasing a RTX 3090 for 1200, I believe, or was it 1400? I forget.
I mean, that kind of makes sense, and it kind of follows with Intel taking features from the i7 and creating the i9 processors, so I guess they're kind of matching that.
Yeah, and so are you going to buy one of those $1,400 graphics cards?
Absolutely not.
I'm really tempted to, but I know that it's not worth it for me. If the only my big recommendation would be, if you ever decide to build a PC for my audience, of course, wait till the 3070 comes out and buy that. Or if you've been following the used market, speaking of used goods, people are starting to dump their 2080 Ti's on ahead of time for literally less than half price, and it's amazing. Have you seen that? Have you seen that, Kay?
I really haven't been looking, but I imagine it would happen. I would caution people about used graphics cards to a certain degree, because some of them have been abused, to say the least.
And sure, to some extent, I would, just.
Oh no, I'm not saying you shouldn't get one. I'm just saying just be a little cautious. Overall, when people are dumping them for the new generation, is an excellent time to buy. I would agree with you completely.
And what about you, Elroy? Do you ever plan on building your own PC at some point?
That is a project that I am going to endeavor in, but it's not something that's a pressing need right now.
Well, I would love to help you out. I would also love to help you out in person too, because I don't know if you guys know this or not, but I knew these guys in real life in college, and Kay and I could help, and there's a ton of other people that we know in our circle of friends that knows how to build PCs and stuff, and it doesn't even have to be like $1,000 computer like mine. Or how much did you spend on your computer, Kay?
That's about the amount I spent.
You can build cheaper computers for like 700 or 800, and you can even build them like console size too if you want. And now there's like a huge influx of like console sized cases. Or if you really wanted to go DIY, you could disassemble like an old console and stuff a computer in there. And do you think you'd ever do that at some point? Any of you guys?
Take an old computer and rebuild it, so to speak, you mean?
No, like take an old like video game console, like an Xbox, original Xbox, or like a PS2 or a GameCube, like and it doesn't. And you can do it. You can even do it in like non-working condition too. In fact, if you're gonna do that, I would recommend buying one of those in like a non-working condition and like gutting the thing completely and replacing the like internal hardware with PC hardware.
I've been tempted to do that in the past, and if I were to set up kind of a smaller PC for my television or something, I would probably do something like that just for the fun of it. Absolutely.
Do you think you would do something like that, Elroy? Like maybe
Me personally, would I do it? Probably not, but I wouldn't mind bearing witness to seeing something like that. It would be interesting. It would be an interesting undertaking.
Yeah, I've seen Linus Tech Tips actually do it with an original Xbox. By the way, it was a lot of work, surprisingly, and he even had to cut a DVI port off of a graphics card in order to get it to fit in there. It was insane.
Sound like we got another video ideas. DIY tech tips during COVID.
DIY with Y being spelled WHY.
I was about to say, I've seen plenty of that.
Yeah, maybe we can get together. We can do it.
So yeah, so that's definitely something as we're stationary. We need to find ways to keep ourselves productive and not focus on the fact that it's not much going on the outside, but make the most of our environment.
Yeah, like a sleeper car. Speaking of which, let's move on to the next topic. Yandere Simulator. Do you guys know what that is?
I do.
What about you?
Somewhat, but please expound.
So, for those of you who don't know, Yandere Simulator is a game where you play as a girl, an anime girl, I should mention, named Yandere Chen. And essentially you have a boy that you're interested in. His name is Senpai, I think. And you have to essentially kill all the other girls that he interacts with stealthily. It's like Hitman, but like anime.
So somewhat this is like a loosely reverse Scott Pilgrim.
I could see it described that way. It's a running trope in anime.
Yes,
it's funny. And this will be for another episode, but they are trying to make an anime sequel to Scott Pilgrim. But I know we'll talk about that another time.
I haven't heard of that yet. You want to link that? You want to link me to that?
Sure.
All right, yeah. So, anyways, Yandere Simulator is all about that, and Yandere Simulator, among other things, is infamous for its developer, Yandere Dev, shortened to Yandev, and he's known for basically just not working on his game at all, and he spends a lot of his time streaming other games that he's playing instead of working on his own. And which is kind of disingenuous because he has a Patreon where he takes money from people to, basically develop his game.
And this has been an ongoing saga for years.
Yes, and in fact, a couple of months ago, I believe, there were two programmers who decided to make from scratch their own version of Yandere Simulator, which was allegedly better than what the current version is.
Well,
and I don't remember the full story on that. Do you remember, Kay?
I know that largely they used many of the same assets because, if I remember correctly, Yandere Simulator uses a lot of Unity assets that were purchased, so they were able to use a lot of the same character models and so forth for their game because they were purchased from a third party.
Tell me, all the character designs are like purchased models? Are not like actually designed characters?
I don't think all of them are, but I think the main character, or at least some of the major characters of the game, were purchased Unity assets.
Bullcrap! I can't believe that. That's so slimy and disingenuous. Like, I understand like some struggling developers use bot assets, and I mean, and it's a good way to demo some things. But I feel as though and I guess like some used assets aren't bad, but like making your main character a bot asset, that's I don't know how to describe it. What are your thoughts on this, Elroy?
Well, Personally, I'm not the biggest fans of those games, which are basically like simulator type games of this nature, because I feel that there's a lot of innuendo involved, and you could go down a rabbit hole that you'll pretty much be stuck in, unfortunately.
Yeah. Speaking of simulators, I got one of our good friends, Dynamite, hooked on to Artificial Academy several years ago.
Dum dum dum.
I think Kane knows all about this.
Oh, I do, unfortunately.
And yet, there's
Oh
a
man,
rabbit hole.
it's a huge rabbit hole, and yeah. So the actual news is that he actually updated his game. Yandere Dev actually updated his game with a rival character now.
Mm-hmm.
Supposedly the first of many.
Yes, the first of many. Wow, man, is this guy ever gonna? So let's do a raffle right now, and you can submit yours in the comments below. When do you think Yandere Dev will complete his game? You can be as vague as like a year, or you can be as specific as like a certain day.
If we're saying according to the original definition of what he considered complete with the number of rivals and content he originally promised, I don't think that's ever going to happen.
I mean, I don't think so either. That's why we're taking bets right now. But if he just said, but we can also take into account that he might just go up and he might just release the version and be like, oh, it's complete now. Realistically, I think that's what's going to happen, and I would give him maybe 5 years tops. 2025.
I think it will probably happen before then that he'll throw in the towel because at a certain point he's simply not going to have the money to continue.
People still pay his Patreon though.
They do, but it's been decreasing, I believe.
Thank goodness. Like, he should have just finished the game and sold it the way she just sold it. Come on.
I have kind of looked into this, and I feel like his largest mistake was not working with the company that offered to work with him and did for a time.
Wait, what company offered to work with him again?
Tiny Build, I believe.
Wow, that's disappointing. Tiny Build's very reputable.
What happened, to my understanding, and I might be wrong on this, was that Tiny Build took a look at his work and said, we're going to take your ideas and kind of turn you into the ideas guy and just do all the coding ourselves. And he didn't exactly agree with that arrangement.
I would have taken it. The guy can barely code.
I mean, that seems kind of the perfect arrangement. I mean, if somebody else is better at the intricacies of your work, but is willing to just take your ideas and run with it, I don't see how there's any offense there, but it is what it is at this point.
I mean, the game's not even like trademarked or copyrighted or anything. People can just make a better version, like those two people that I alluded to earlier. In fact, I think when they announced that they could do it, Yandere Dev basically like threatened to kill himself or something like that.
There was some drama. There was also I believe a fan-made game that has at this point no longer considers itself a fan-made game, and because it has, to my understanding, surpassed the original now.
Oh, that's pretty sweet. Maybe we'll give it a whirl on the channel. I love these little like obscure little gems. So let's move on to the next topic. Elon Musk and the microchips in the brain. So Elroy actually submitted this topic, and I'm gonna let him lead this topic.
Elon Musk.
Yes, everyone knows.
Behind Tesla, the guy who wants to do commercial flight to space. In one of his more recent technological endeavors, he has developed a microchip he wants to mass market that will be implanted into your brain. Amongst the selling points for this device is, he said, that it will enable those who have disabilities to be able to perform certain tasks they would ordinarily do. Now, the concern is anytime you insert anything like that to the brain or even have a surgery during the brain, it's very high risk. So the question you got to ask in terms of technology being able to be implanted to the brain, what kind of issues could be caused, and also what could happen if someone was able to hack into said technology. Basically, they could literally do mind control, literally. So it's just something to think about. There's a lot of risk in terms of pulling off an endeavor like this.
I don't see this getting federal approval simply due to the reason of the inductive charging on it. Okay, so it has in effect wireless charging on a device that would be installed into your brain. This closely, well, at least has a vague mimicry of what is an actual medical treatment, which is, things like for Parkinson's and for depression, where they induce electric charges in the brain. Without a real reason to do this or any good hard data, which they have been so far unable to provide, there's significant risk to just running electricity into the brain. It causes all sorts of problems.
I can imagine. You were basically controlled by electricity, just very, very small doses of it.
And let's be realistic. Elon Musk would be the one that would attempt such a feat.
I swear, it feels like we're talking about Elon Musk every other episode.
He's kind of a hot topic in technology.
Absolutely. Elon Musk is he's a software he's a software guy, and I understand where he's coming from. He has all these like ideas, and he's smart enough to execute them too, which is a good thing. We need someone like an Elon Musk. We need like a modern day mad scientist. But at the same time, though, I mean, like he's introducing a lot of stuff.
I'm not sure mad scientist would be the word I would want to particularly use.
I mean, come on, the Tesla is like the board of directors have been trying to kick him out for years because he's basically like a loose cannon, for better or worse.
He has been limited in his role in the company by the SEC.
Yeah, my man Tesla, Elon Tesla, Elon Musk. He said a lot of stuff recently. He expressed his interest in wanting to make anime cat girls real in a tweet, and also like smoked a bunch of marijuana on a radio show too.
Well, this whole thing about anime cat girls, we don't want a repeat of the book, The Island of Dr. Moreau. Kay and Starlogical, do you catch that reference?
I haven't read the book. Sorry.
But Kay, are you familiar with the book, The Island of Dr. Moreau?
Not particularly, no.
Well, essentially in the book, there was a crazy scientist that had an island where he did these experimentations where he combined animals and humans and basically had these animal humanoids that ran the island, and it was just all kinds of chaos ensued from his experimentation because he saw himself as being benevolent, but he ended up doing more harm than good in terms of what he had created. And basically, he had reached the point of no return, essentially.
That does sound interesting. I might have to give it a shot.
It's also a very cheesy film as well.
Go ahead and type the name of the book and watch
film as well.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of this one episode of Treehouse of Horror on The Simpsons, where the Simpsons are invited to Dr. Hibbert's private island, but it turns out Dr. Hibbert's this mad scientist that creates half animal, half humanoids.
That's essentially the plot. It was a reference to the island of Dr. Moreau.
Oh.
So familiar with it.
Oh, I guess I am familiar with it. I just never caught the reference before.
Have options. You can watch the film or you can read the book. But that's for another time. Yeah,
that is for another time. But I wouldn't say cat girl, like anime cat girls, are on the same level as cat human hybrids. They would just be humans, but with cat ears, with like anime cat ears.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, speaking of which, let's move on. Let's microchips in the brain. it's a dangerous topic because, like as you said, people can hack into it, and if the US were ever to approve of it, the US would just have a backdoor into your brain, and it would just be used for tracking, not just by the US, but by basically every tech company that ever exists. And they would have assuming that, and they would just have a direct feed of everything, like everything you're looking at, everything you're hearing, everything you're thinking. It could be the birth of, well, Big Brother as we speak.
It won't be the birth of Big Brother. Big Brother's already here.
Well, it'll be just it'll be something else too. It'll be the empowerment of Big Brother. Big Brother will be more powerful than he's ever been. It'll be 1984.
But you gotta understand, we're moving in that direction because I'm very skeptical of the smart contact lens that they developed that supposed to give you, basically supervision. I'll pass. That's just me personally.
Oh yeah, if you're privacy conscious, yeah, but people nowadays aren't privacy conscious. Like millennials, like our generation, we're millennials, by the way. Like we're born in the 90s, but we're still millennials. And don't let anyone ever tell you that you're not a millennial. I know someone that believes that he's not a millennial, but he is.
Mm.
Speaking of which, our generation doesn't even really value privacy.
I would say that's up for discussion depending on the topic.
Yeah, let's talk. Privacy is another discussion, but I just want to say that a lot of people don't value privacy the way they used to in the past. And Edward Snowden's whole thing blew over, and what happened? Nothing happened because no one cared. Well, I wouldn't say no one cared, but most people don't care. Think about it. Do you ever read the EULA? Do you ever read the terms and services? Do you pour through every page of it?
Oh, no, not every page. No.
You're talking to the wrong guy if you expect me not to read things that I'm handed to sign.
I mean, you're an accountant, though, so I understand where you're coming from. Yeah, so, I mean, yeah, it's like you could be turned into a human centipede if you've ever watched South Park.
So,
yeah.
So listen, audience, add that to our list of avenues that we need to explore in terms of what can you do to maximize your privacy on technology. Some practical tips from us.
A lot of my privacy-focused efforts are more towards advertisements. If I'm not making money off of the data I give them, then I'm not going to give them any data. I think that should be the status quo.
Indeed, and I think we can definitely explore the topic even deeper too in terms of what this really means, especially now.
Yes, but I think we should move on, and let's move on to the next topic: emulation. Do you guys play games through emulators?
It's funny. One of my best gaming memories was the result of an emulator. And I know you remember Star Logical. You weren't around, Kay, but Star Logical, you can remember at our hangout in college, I played Pokemon Go for the first time, and you remember I fought the infamous Whitney.
Pokemon Gold, you said?
Yes, and remember I made it to Whitney's gym. I fought the infamous Whitney, and the first time I actually somehow I was lucky enough to run through her, but when I played her the second go round, well, I met the fate that everybody else did. I mean not gold, excuse me, silver. Sorry.
Yeah. I didn't have a lot of issue with Whitney personally. I know of the issue. Sometimes she would wreck me, but most of the time I didn't have a huge issue with her.
Let me guess, you used gasoline curse, didn't you?
Well, I liked ghosts. I like ghost Pokemon. They're the coolest type of Pokemon, obviously. So probably.
But not to dabble too far off with a size. The reason that was my best memory on emulation is it introduced me to my personal Pokemon partner of choice, the other destroyer, the Great Miltank.
I heard that pun. Yeah. So, what are your thoughts? So, yeah, do you believe emulators are legal? I know by definition they are, but do you believe that they are? Nintendo doesn't seem to believe so.
Technically, Nintendo provides an emulator.
Yeah, for the people that have a Switch. Is it on Switch and Switch Lite or just Switch Lite?
It's on both the NES and Super Nintendo. I've used it myself. It's actually quite a nice emulator.
And they actually give you some really nice games because you even get to play the rare Star Fox 2.
Nintendo's been using emulators since the Wii days. Well, actually, no, the GameCube days, if you count Animal Crossing on the GameCube.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember those games. That was, and you could even plug in a Game Boy Advance and upload it to that and play it on that Game Boy Advance for a while, if I remember correctly.
Oh, man.
I think the question of emulators may be depending on whose hands they're in, because they can be very useful, because that's a very welcome experience on Switch. The fact that you can play some of the gems that Nintendo have provided us for the years, and you don't have to rebuy the game. And they even offer save spots, so that's very convenient. So it's definitely something useful and consoles should consider. I mean, who wouldn't want to play Crash Bandicoot on PS5 through emulation and not have to buy the game again?
Well, emulation historically, I mean, don't get me wrong, a lot of people like to use emulators but use their own copies of the games, but emulation historically has been a huge avenue for piracy. Let's not mistake that. People get emulators to pirate games to play these old games that they don't own. And while I understand that like companies might have a neck, they might remaster these games one day or some crap like that. But I think the truth is that we need emulation and, I guess to a degree, piracy in order to be able to preserve these games, right?
And to give an example to what you're speaking to, Star Logical. Now, I know you remember when myself and another friend of ours played this. There was a very obscure Japanese arcade game.
Ninja Baseball Batman something?
Oh, come on. You just want to steal my shine, but yeah.
It's what he's going to do.
I will provide a link too for those that weren't familiar, but the reason that I found out about this game is a friend of ours was watching the AVGN video and he was like, I saw this really cool game called Ninja Baseball Batman, but the problem was it was only mainly exclusive to Japanese arcades, and I don't even know if there were 20 North American arcades that had the game. So we played it via MAME, and the game was as great as advertised. So if they ever remastered it, would be well worth it. But like I said, I'll provide a link to some of the gameplay from it. But it's definitely one of those underappreciated jewels you may not see.
I mean, who made the game, though? I mean, they might not even be in like business anymore.
I will tell you in just a second.
Because if they're not in business anymore, then who owns the IP?
IREM Corporation. Now they're known as IREM Software Engineering.
Do they still make games nowadays? That might be important. That might be an important distinction.
But Star Logical, you like SMUP. Something that you should know is they're the ones that were behind R-Type.
Yes, R-Type. Yes, it's a classic. It's a classic in the genre, and no console is complete without its own R-Type port. Let's be quite
But
frank.
the last game I'm showing a reference for was in 2011. So unfortunately, I'm not sure if IREM is still in the game making business.
So personally, my favorite shmup is Darius Gaiden. It's not pronounced Darius Gaiden; it's pronounced Darius Gaiden, like the old Persian king. And it's an amazing game. It's probably one of the best looking like 2D games like ever made, honestly. And I mean, it's an extremely difficult shmup too, because basically whenever you get a power up in a level that increases your main firepower, the game like ramps up in difficulty for that level, and it's actually insane. And speaking of ramping up, how do you feel about retro elitists that believe that playing on hardware is the only way to play these games? Like, what do you guys think of those guys?
I mean, I imagine there's differences, but emulators have come a long way, and I say this as someone who usually does play the game on the old hardware just because I have a lot of old hardware.
And well, what do you think? And what do you think, Elroy? What do you think about hardware versus emulation?
Being the person here that probably loves arcades the most, there's nothing I can appreciate more than good hardware, but it doesn't have to be the end all. Because like I said, and I did find, and I'm going to post the link here. I found the website for Ninja Baseball Batman. But anyhow, if it wasn't for emulation, I would never even been introduced to the game. So you got to think of how hard it is to even find a cabinet to play it on. While I personally enjoy the cabinet, it helps for some of those games that almost like it's a legend. Does this really even exist?
Yeah, I understand. And some games are prohibitively expensive to buy. Like Earthbound is at least $100 minimum.
But let me say this for our audience and my friends here who I invite to this every year, hint, hint. If you want an experience where you get to experience 80 cabinets of arcade games from all kinds of decades from the 70s to contemporary times, there is an event called MagFest where one of the main draws is they have an arcade that for the duration of the convention is free play. So you're talking pinball machines, arcade cabinets, all kinds of games, classics, games you may never heard of, popular multiplayer games now like Killer Queen. All of those are offered.
Do they have any of the modern Japanese arcade games like that run on Nesica Live hardware?
It's something that I cannot remember. But if you go to their website, I'm sure through contact information they could definitely tell you. But let me hold on. Let me rephrase that. Disclaimer: the arcade cabinets they get are ones that people donate. They own companies or people own, so they donate, and they basically, I think, get free admission to the event for allowing them to borrow their machine.
Okay, all right. I've thought about making my very own arcade machine. It would obviously run on emulation, but it would just be like a PC inside of like an arcade like style cabinet, and it would have buttons and a joystick and a 2-player side. Oh, dude, it'd be sweet though if I made my own 6-person cabinet. Because have you ever played the 6-person version of the X-Men beat 'em up by Konami?
I believe I have.
Man, talking about
my arcade had that machine was always occupied. It was so awesome.
I played it so many times, but I remember when I finally beat the game. Another friend of ours, and I beat it, and we thought we were done. Next thing you know, the game restarts from the beginning. And we're like, we're not doing this. It took us 2 hours. We're not doing this again.
A lot of old arcade games would simply start at the beginning again. I remember the G.I. Joe game would do that as well.
I might need to play that. I didn't even know about this G.I. Joe game.
A lot of old shmups, a lot of like shmups do this too. Dodonpachi. I think I've told you about this in college, but
I played. You see me play Dodonpachi and struggle through it. Don't remind me.
So there's 5 levels normally, and
wait, no, it was Dodonpachi. I was playing.
If you
I'm sorry,
do certain requirements, there's what you're playing?
Toho.
Oh no! Don't get me on started on Toho. That's another video on itself. But let's talk about the superior shmup, Dodonpachi. So there's normally 5 levels in the original Dodonpachi, and essentially, if you complete certain requirements, you get to do a second run of the game, and you get to fight a second harder run of the game, and you get to fight the true final boss. So it's basically a requirement to beat the game, like beat the game. And I think one of the requirements was you can't die, and you can't use a bomb, and you can't use any bombs, and you have to collect hidden B medals throughout the level too. And I managed to make it to the second loop without dying, but once I got to the second loop, I started dying like left and right. It's crazy. Anyway, so let's move on to the next topic: visual novels. Can you really call them games?
Say they should be considered games because some people may remember the Choose Your Own Adventure books. That's essentially what it is in gaming form in terms of there's a series of choices that dictate the series of events that will unfold. So it's a game in a sense. Is it for everybody? No, it's more niche, but yes, I say it definitely should be considered a game.
What about you, Kay?
I mean, I feel they would absolutely be considered games.
Well, I guess it really just depends on the visual novel itself. Well, just your average visual novel with choices. I mean, yeah, sure. I don't see why not. But there are some visual novels where you don't make choices, like Nekopara. You make absolutely zero choices in that game. I'm not convinced that should really even be considered one. Honestly.
Hey, you have the choice of whether or not you should shake the window around.
Oh yeah, that's an option. That's that.
Man,
I can't even.
There's a friend of ours that knows this the visual novel expert. Too bad he's not on.
Yeah, too bad he's not on. Maybe I should invite him one day and have him talk about visual novels. A visual novel focused episode? Thoughts?
I would suggest it be a topic.
All right, that's fine. And we can also add shoes to the topic too while we're at it. Yes, but
that was an inside joke to our audience.
Yes, well, you'll learn what it is later. Speaking of which, let's move on to our final topic. Super Mario's 35th anniversary was today, and they come out with a bunch of announcements too. Have you guys seen it yet?
I need to take a look at these.
I've seen it.
So there's a couple of games that have been announced today, actually. So one of which is like a weird Mario Kart like AR / like toy / video game ish thing, and it looks pretty cool actually. I might want. It would be really sweet if you could like rig up some like tracks, you know.
I just wish there was some way Nintendo and the company that was doing the Mario Kart racing would come to an agreement. So that'd be something I could add to my list to do in Japan. But here we are.
The Mario Kart, like the actual Mario Karting with like real go-karts.
Well, they had something like that in Japan, but because of copyright issues, they had to put a stop to it because Nintendo was none too happy about it. But a lot of tourists used to take part in that. But yes, you basically could dress up as the
Nintendo's well within their rights to race. Well within their rights to do that. That would be pretty sweet though if they had one like that.
Yeah, that's why I say it would be nice if they made a compromise, but basically it got shut down. So yeah,
I think the big announcement was the release of. Well, there's actually a couple of big announcements. One is that Super Mario All Stars is on the Nintendo Switch via Virtual Console. Well, is it called Virtual Console anymore?
I have no idea what it's called anymore.
I don't know, but anyways, the point is, I actually owned a copy of Super Mario All Stars, and not just that too. It was also like a single cartridge, and it was bundled with Super Mario World as well, which is like, damn, all these great Mario games we have.
Yes, but just remember, Super Mario 2 don't eat no purple mushroom.
I think they made the lost levels a lot easier on the Super Nintendo version. Whereas the NES version, you can't. I've played it. I own it on the Super Nintendo, dude.
No, I was going to ask, did you have the actual original one on NES, or you just played the one on Super Nintendo?
I had a couple of Japanese Famicom games, but no. But I have played the original. I have played the original Mario Brothers too. So one of the big differences is that poison mushrooms look literally almost the exact same as like a normal mushroom.
Mm.
And the color difference is like so subtle you wouldn't even know. Like, the first mushroom you see is a poison mushroom too. And it's the worst. It's the worst feeling ever, man. And also, we had a mutual friend, the same mutual friend that you played Ninja Batman baseball. Anyways,
Ninja Baseball Batman.
yes, the same mutual friend. He claims he beat the lost levels, but I told him that there were actually like 4 other worlds that weren't included in his port, and so he had to revoke his completed status. And man, you should have seen his face; it was hilarious.
Well, to his credit, he still is the Galaga King because anytime at our hangout, if anybody got the high score, he shattered it without breaking a sweat.
Galaga.
So we definitely be nice to have him on especially when we do hint the retro gaming episode. It's definitely somebody we want to consult with because, like I said, he's the best guy to play we know.
Well, he's barely online in Discord anymore. It's hard to get a hold of him. I'd have to.
We'll arrange something.
Yeah, you can arrange something possibly. Speaking of which, well, they announced that. They also announced Super Mario 3D World and an expansion is coming to the Switch.
But here's a question I have for you guys, and maybe this might be something that got by me as we talk about Mario. Was there ever an official sequel to Super Mario World?
Yeah, it was called Super Mario World 2 Yoshi's Island.
But wasn't that more of a prequel? Because wasn't Mario a baby on the game?
Baby Mario isn't Mario.
Okay.
Yeah, I have no idea. But I'm gonna assume.
But I'm trying to say, was that really a sequel? That was more like a prequel, unless I'm missing something. I mean, maybe that's just me.
It's a totally different style of game too.
That's why I'm like, why didn't we ever get an official sequel? It was one of the most respected Mario games, one of the best games on SNES, truthfully.
Some would argue that Super Mario 64 is the sequel.
I mean, Yoshi's Island got pretty much a remake on virtually every console. I know it had one for Game Boy Advance, DS.
Wasn't that a sequel instead of a remake?
I'm pretty sure it was mostly a remake.
Oh. Man. Yoshi's Island's pretty good. Oh man.
But Mario, so many memories. I'm sure we all remember when we the shortcut on Super Mario.
I remember
level 2, that shortcut. Boom. Go to the World 8. Okay, boom.
I remember this one level in Yoshi's Island where basically if you touch like fuzzies, you basically go on like this acid trip, and it's like a drug fueled like mess that like warps the level. Like you've seen what an acid trip looks like in a movie, right?
Yes.
Touch Fuzzy Get Dizzy was the name of the level.
Yes, and that was great. That was a great level. I don't know why Nintendo put a drug reference, but it's great.
Talk about high times.
I mean, you should see some of the references they make in the Paper Mario games. You wouldn't believe it if you've never played them before.
I mean, to be fair, though, the Paper Mario games are made by the same guys that make Fire Emblem, are they not? Like Intelligent Studios or something like that? Intelligent Works?
Intelligent Systems? I'm not sure. I know that the Advance Wars games were made by the same people.
Yeah. Fire Emblem's good, but let's get back to it. And they also announced a limited run collection. In fact, it's so limited that you won't even be able to buy it digitally in March. After March.
They're not releasing it digitally?
They are releasing it digitally. It's just going off the store digitally on March. And I think that's kind of bullcrap. They should just keep it for sale. But essentially, it's Mario 64, Mario Sunshine, and Super Mario Galaxy all in one disc.
I have a question. Is the Super Mario Galaxy going to require the use of the Joy-Cons?
I don't know. Probably. It's very possible. I mean, like, Wait, didn't they use the Joy-Cons? Didn't Mario?
Yes.
Didn't Odyssey use the Joy-Cons too? In a similar
You didn't necessarily need to use them. I know they mentioned requiring it, but I'm not sure whether or not Galaxy will require the Joy-Con for only co-op or if they're going to require it for playing it at all.
Well, I mean, they also have to take into account Switch Lite owners, so it's not like they could, you know.
They could. They could just require it. The Switch Lite does technically support the Joy-Con, technically.
Oh man. Well, that would suck for you. That would suck, Elroy, because I know you have a Switch Lite and not a Switch.
And I believe Kay does as well, if I'm not mistaken.
You are correct.
I have a Switch, and mine is modified, so I don't have to worry about this limited edition stuff.
And it's bad enough I can't play Mario. Is it Mario Kart or Mario Party that you can't play on the Lite?
I would imagine it's Mario Party.
Definitely Mario Party. I own Mario Party, Super Mario Party, and it's nice that they went back to each person like being able to go their own way instead of like the stupid card direction. But like, the maps are so small. And worst off is that Nintendo like doesn't allow online play, which is bullcrap. Especially since they charge for online play as well, too.
I was just thinking of something that would have been hilarious. What if on Mario's 35th anniversary they announced a Waluigi game?
Waluigi.
I think seeing an update for Super Mario 64 is alone pretty interesting.
And what was that update?
Yeah, didn't they? I thought they made an update like on the DS at one point. You actually start off the game as Yoshi in the DS game.
Oh yes, they did make the DS game. I played through that as well, but the original getting a remake for a console again is interesting.
Yeah, it's especially since a lot of people consider it to be the greatest platformer ever made.
Mario 3. Don't tell that to the Mario 3 things.
Oh no, Mario 3 is definitely the best by far. It's actually a tie between that and World, honestly.
I agree.
You know what wasn't a good Mario game though? Super Mario Bros. 2, the American one. I mean.
Oh, good grief! In the darn whatever that thing was at the final. Well, it won't Koopa, the alligator-looking thing, the final boss. I don't even know what was his name anyway.
It's a frog. I don't remember his name either, but
I know it was a reptilian or amphibian, but I just know it was a joke.
I mean, it wasn't even originally a Mario game.
Yeah, no. It was another Japanese game based on.
But just know, if you for some reason find yourself playing that game, do not pick Toad. Worst choice ever.
Honestly, you're better off playing as either Luigi or Peach. Honestly. Anyways, speaking of which, it looks like the podcast is coming to a close right now, friends. And any final thoughts on anything?
Not particularly. I think we covered the topics pretty well.
Looking forward to our next adventure and seeing where that takes us.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that too. That would be nice. And if you have any topics, be sure to leave them in the designated area. I think it would be interesting to see what you guys have to say about stuff. I know a lot of the topics are the stuff like I talk about. Anyways, I'll see you guys next time. Same time, same place. I don't know, but we'll come up with a time.